I saved the alien chieftain, and by dawn, 5 alien women wanted to pay me physically. The Crimson Rescue. The twin sons of Zareth painted the desert canyon in shades of copper and gold as Marcus Vale carefully brushed sand from the ancient crystalline panel. 3 months on this remote moon had yielded fascinating discoveries, but nothing compared to what he'd found today, a fully intact predecessor defense grid, dormant for millennia. A sharp cry echoed through the ravine, shattering his concentration. Marcus grabbed his scanner and crept toward the canyon's edge. Below, a striking figure with pearl-white skin and flowing silver hair fought desperately against 6 attackers. She moved with lethal grace, her curved blade singing through the air, but the numbers were overwhelming. Marcus recognized her immediately, Nyara Thess, the chieftain of the Northern Territories, whose clan had granted him permission to excavate these ruins. Her attackers wore the crimson marks of the Scoreth raiders, notorious for targeting isolated settlements. Without thinking, Marcus's fingers flew across the ancient panel he'd been studying. The predecessor technology hummed to life, responding to his touch. Defensive energy barriers erupted from hidden emitters throughout the canyon, separating Nyara from her attackers. The raiders stumbled backward as Marcus triggered a secondary pulse that sent them fleeing into the wasteland. He scrambled down the rocky path, finding Nyara leaning against a boulder, her breathing labored. A deep gash ran along her side, staining her ivory robes with luminescent blue blood. "The human archaeologist," she said, her voice like whispered silk despite her pain. "You wielded the old technology." "Let me help you," Marcus said, pulling out his medical kit. As he worked to seal her wound with biofoam, he couldn't help but notice the way her skin seemed to shimmer in the fading light, or how her violet eyes held depths he'd never seen in any being, human or otherwise. "You have saved my life, Marcus Vale," Nyara said as the biofoam took effect. She placed her hand over his, her touch surprisingly warm. "Among my people, such a debt cannot go unacknowledged. The Zarethians remember their saviors." She stood with fluid grace, her wound already beginning to heal thanks to the treatment. "By tomorrow's dawn, you will understand the depth of my gratitude." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Nyara pressed 2 fingers to her forehead in a formal gesture and vanished into the growing shadows, leaving only the lingering scent of desert flowers and the promise of something unprecedented. Dawn's unexpected visitors. Marcus woke to the soft chime of his proximity sensors. The first rays of Zaretha's primary sun cast long shadows across his research station as 5 figures approached through the morning mist. He hastily pulled on his desert gear and stepped outside, his breath catching at the sight before him. 5 women stood in a perfect crescent formation, each radiating an otherworldly beauty and presence that made the air itself seem to shimmer. They wore flowing garments that caught the morning light, revealing hints of toned figures beneath. The first stepped forward, a statuesque woman with midnight blue skin and white markings that traced elegant patterns across her arms. "I am Kaelin," she said, her voice strong yet melodious. "Chief strategist of Nyara's guard. We come to fulfill the promise made." Beside her, a woman with lavender skin and eyes that sparkled like amethysts smiled warmly. "Zara," she introduced herself, keeper of ancient healing arts. Her fingers traced the air, leaving brief trails of luminescent energy. "Lyris," said the third, her copper-toned skin gleaming as she moved with predator-like grace. "I map the stars and the lands beneath them." Her gaze held an intensity that made Marcus's pulse quicken. The fourth woman commanded attention without effort, skin like polished jade, with silver tattoos that seemed to move across her arms. "Talia," she announced, spinning an energy blade that materialized from nowhere. "I teach the dance of combat." Finally, the fifth stepped forward, and Marcus found himself momentarily speechless. Where the others were bold, she possessed a quiet radiance. Her skin held the soft pearl luminescence of moonlight, and her smile was gentle yet knowing. "I am Myra," she said simply. "I speak for peace between peoples." "I don't understand," Marcus managed. Nyara mentioned gratitude, but... Kaelin's laugh was rich and warm. "You saved our chieftain's life. By our customs, you've earned the right to experience the heart-bonding ritual. It's how we honor those who prove themselves worthy, through connection of body, mind, and spirit." Zara approached, her healing energy making Marcus's skin tingle pleasantly. "Each of us offers something unique. The ritual allows you to know us, and us to know you, in ways your people might find intimate. It's not mere physical desire, Myra added softly, and Marcus found his attention drawn to her despite the magnetic presence of the others. It's about trust, connection, and understanding between souls. Lyris circled him slowly, her movement hypnotic. Tonight, we feast. We dance. We share. And by dawn, you'll understand what it means to be chosen by the daughters of Zareth. The dance of intentions. The research station's main chamber had been transformed. Soft bioluminescent orbs floated near the ceiling, casting everything in a warm, ethereal glow. The women had prepared a feast of Zarethian delicacies, fruits that burst with flavors Marcus had no words for, and wine that seemed to heighten every sensation. In our culture, Kaelin explained, standing gracefully, we express ourselves through movement. She began to sway, her body flowing through combat forms that gradually transformed into something more sensuous. Each strike became a caress of the air, each defensive stance an invitation. She moved closer to Marcus, her hand barely grazing his shoulder as she spun past, leaving him breathless. My turn, Talia announced, her energy blade becoming 2, then 4, creating patterns of light as she danced. The weapons were extensions of her body, and she wielded them with an intimacy that was mesmerizing. She drew close enough that Marcus could feel the heat from the blades, could smell the electric ozone they created, mixed with her own scent of spice and storm clouds. Zara approached differently, her hands glowing with healing energy. May I? She asked, and when Marcus nodded, she placed her palms on his temples. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced. Warm waves of pleasure cascaded through his nervous system, not quite intimate but deeply personal. I can sense your energy, she whispered. You're holding back. Don't. Lyris produced a star map, but instead of projecting it, she traced the constellations on Marcus's arm with her fingertip, her touch leaving trails of cool fire on his skin. Every star has a story, she murmured, leaning close enough that her breath tickled his ear. Every touch creates a new constellation between us. Through it all, Marcus found his eyes returning to Myra, who watched with a gentle smile. When the others settled back, she finally approached. Instead of performing, she simply extended her hand. Would you dance with me? She asked. The music, if the ethereal sounds filling the air could be called that, shifted to something slower, deeper. Myra's hand in his was warm, real in a way that grounded him. They moved together, and she guided him through steps that seemed both alien and utterly natural. You're overwhelmed, she observed softly, her body close to his as they swayed. It's intense, Marcus admitted, acutely aware of her proximity, the way her pearl-white skin seemed to glow in the low light. The others show passion through performance, Myra said, her hand sliding up to rest against his chest. But sometimes, the quietest connections run deepest. She looked up at him, and in that moment, despite the exotic beauty of all 5 women, Marcus felt something shift inside him, a pull toward Myra that went beyond the physical. Moonlight confessions. The larger moon had risen, bathing the desert in silver light. Marcus found himself on the observation deck with Myra, the cool night air a relief after the intensity inside. She leaned against the railing, her profile ethereal in the moonlight. You feel it too, she said, not a question but a gentle acknowledgement. The connection between us. I do, Marcus admitted, moving closer. With the others, it's powerful, overwhelming. But with you, it's like coming home to a place you've never been, Myra finished, turning to face him. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally. On Zareth, we believe some souls recognize each other across species, across worlds. She stepped closer, her free hand rising to touch his face. May I share something with you? A Zarethian kiss. At his nod, Myra leaned in, but instead of pressing her lips to his immediately, she first breathed against his mouth, sharing her breath with him. When their lips finally met, it was electric, not the overwhelming sensation Zara had created, but something deeper, a connection that seemed to resonate in his very bones. The sound of footsteps broke them apart. The other 4 women emerged onto the deck, but instead of jealousy, their faces showed understanding. The heart bonding isn't about possession, Kaelin said, approaching them. It's about connection in all its forms. They formed a circle on the deck, sitting close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth from each of them. Zara's hand rested on his shoulder, Lyris's fingers traced patterns on his arm, while Talia's leg pressed against his. Myra remained closest, her hand never leaving his. "Share with us," Lyris whispered. "Your dreams, your fears, your desires." Under the alien stars, Marcus found himself opening up in ways he never had before. He spoke of his loneliness as an explorer, his fear of never truly belonging anywhere, his desire to bridge worlds through understanding. The women responded in kind, sharing their own vulnerabilities. Kaelin's burden of leadership, Zara's connection to others' pain, Lyris's fear of being bound to one place, Talia's struggle to be seen beyond her warrior facade, and Myra's challenge of being a peacemaker in a warrior culture. As the night deepened, the boundaries between them blurred. Touches became caresses. Conversations became whispered confessions against skin. Marcus found himself kissing Kaelin, her passion fierce and consuming, then Zara, whose kiss seemed to heal old wounds he didn't know he carried. Lyris's kiss tasted of adventure and distant horizons, while Talia's held the promise of protection and strength. But always, he returned to Myra, whose presence anchored him even as he honored the connections with the others. She guided the energy of the group, ensuring everyone felt valued, desired, connected. "This is the true heart bonding," she murmured against his neck as the others pressed close, their hands and lips creating a symphony of sensation. Not just physical pleasure, but the joining of spirits, the creation of bonds that transcend the temporary. Bonds beyond worlds. Dawn arrived with a gentle warmth that seemed to suffuse everything. Marcus woke to find himself still on the observation deck, cushions and blankets having appeared at some point in the night. The 5 women were arranged around him like the points of a star, all touching him in some way, a hand, a leg, shoulders pressed together. Myra was closest, her head on his chest, and she stirred first. Her smile was radiant as she met his eyes. "You understand now," she said softly. "I do," Marcus replied, his other hand finding Kaelin's, his foot touching Lyris's. "This isn't about choosing one or excluding others. It's about honoring all connections while recognizing the special ones." Nyara Thess arrived as the suns rose fully, her presence regal and commanding. She surveyed the scene with approval. "You have honored our customs well, Marcus Vale. The heart bonding is complete." "But this doesn't have to end," Zara said, sitting up gracefully. "The bonds we've formed, they're real." "I would have you join our clan," Nyara announced. "Not as an outsider studying our culture, but as one of us. Myra has spoken of her deeper connection with you, and we honor that, just as we honor the bonds you formed with all 5. Marcus looked at each woman, seeing in their faces not possession or jealousy, but genuine affection and acceptance. In Kaelin's eyes, he saw a future training partner and protector. In Zara's, a healer of body and spirit. In Lyris's, an exploration companion for uncharted worlds. In Talia's, a fierce ally and passionate friend. And in Myra's eyes, he saw everything: love, partnership, a bridge between worlds. "Your research can continue," Nyara added. "But now, you'll have the full support of our clan. Our resources, our protection, our knowledge. And our hearts," Myra added, taking his hand as the others gathered close. Marcus stood, feeling the weight and wonder of the moment. "I came here seeking ancient ruins and dead history," he said. "Instead, I found living connections I never imagined possible." The ceremony was simple. Nyara painted a symbol on his forehead with luminescent ink that would fade in a day but leave a permanent mark only Zarethians could see. Each of the 5 women added their own small mark, and Myra's was placed directly over his heart. "You are clan now," Nyara declared. "Bound by honor, by passion, and by choice." As the double suns climbed higher, Marcus stood with his new family, Myra pressed against his side, the others close by. His communication panel chimed with a message from Earth asking for his regular report. He smiled, wondering how he could possibly explain that in saving one life, he had gained 6 new ones, that in one night of passion and connection, he had found where he belonged. Some things, he decided, couldn't be reduced to archaeological reports. "Come," Myra said, tugging his hand. "Let us show you the sacred sites of our people. After all, you're one of us now." As they walked into the desert together, all 6 women accompanying him, Marcus realized that sometimes the greatest discoveries weren't buried in the past but waiting in the connections we dare to make with others, no matter how alien they might seem. The desert of Zareth stretched endlessly before them, full of promise, adventure, and the bonds that would define the rest of his life. The end.